for the Police Services Board, Norfolk County, May 22nd, 2019, and ask if there are any declarations of pecuniary interest or any in the general nature thereof. If so, seeing none, we'll move directly on. Before we go in camera, I just want to make a couple of comments about the discussion today. Certainly, I gave Mr. Columbus and Member Murphy due warning last week about their views on the Zone 4 meeting, so I'll be asking any comments you might have about that meeting, and Inspector Varga as well. I was talking about my departure this morning for Windsor for the conference and on PSB, Ontario PSB. I'll also be talking about the correspondence that I've had with the chair of the Delhi Community Policing Committee, and Councillor Columbus may want to jump in on that one as well. He was in on most of that communication, and we'll talk about the motion from Council on PD 13, Friday the 13th, coming up in September, and also about my proposed presentation to Council with Board's approval. And with 7 new members there, they don't particularly know what a PSB is and what we do, so I think it'd be informative for them to understand that. And then we will have a closed session as we normally do. So that's just sort of an outline of what we're going to cover today. And then, of course, anything that members themselves want to bring up as we move forward. So having said that, I have a motion at this point to go in camera, moved by Member Columbus and Member Murphy. The Police Services Board move into closed session at 9:02 a.m. to discuss matters pursuant to Section 35A and B to the Police Services Act, RSO 1990, CP 15 as amended, as subject matter involving public security may be discussed and disclosed, and having regard to the circumstances, the desirability of avoiding their disclosure in the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principle that proceedings be open to the public, and intimate financial or personal matters also, or other matters which may be disclosed of such a nature, having regard to the circumstances, that the desirability of avoiding their disclosure in the interest of any person affected or in the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principles that proceedings be open to the public. Any comment? All in favor? Thank you. We'll go in camera. Yeah. So we'll reconvene at 10:15 in open session. And just let folks know that there will be nothing coming out of the closed session for public consumption at this point. And that takes us back to the agenda. There are no ceremonial activities this morning. And that takes us to item number 5, no deputations or presentations have been scheduled. Item 6, approval correction of Police Services Board minutes of April the 24th. I have a motion by David Murphy and member Carol Greentree that the Norfolk County Police Services Board minutes of April 24th be approved. Any discussion on those? Anything? Thank you. A motion, show of hands to approve that. That's carried. Moved by Councillor Columbus, second by Councillor Murphy, that the CPC chair meeting minutes of May the 7th be received as information. That's the community policing committees. Any discussion on those? All in favor? Thank you. That's carried. And then that takes us to the business arising from the minutes, and I don't see anything on the agenda. Anything from board members? No? OPP monthly report. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So we'll start on page 14. So the Police Service Board report for the month of April 2019. Overtime allotment per the contract was $387,628. Dollars spent to date estimated $95,025.06, which is 24.51% of the allotment, and you can compare that to 2018. So we're slightly down from where we were the same portion in 2018. Auxiliary policing hours for the month of April were 538. Crime Stoppers report, page 16. There have been 212 anonymous tips received so far this year. Statistics are there. 6,260 charges laid since inception. Student Crime Stopper bursary applications were received from secondary schools in Norfolk and Haldeman counties. Alicia Fogg from Hagersville Secondary School was the recipient of the bursary. They continue to support all Student Crime Stoppers programs within Haldeman and Norfolk counties. And the 26th anniversary breakfast at Hagersville Secondary School was held on April the 11th, and it was another successful, great event. Promotions, presentations, meetings. Crime Stoppers participated, presented to or gave promotional items to. They held their murder mystery dinner and silent auction. They presented and supported the Citizens Police Academy, the Golf Committee, and the Hagersville Secondary School Breakfast and Simcoe Lions. Appreciation Luncheon was held on April the 18th at D&D's Diner, Banquet Hall in Jarvis. It was well attended. Tom Stackhouse Memorial Award went to the Ad Plus Promotions. Bill Courtney Memorial Award went to Bev Hickey. And the Law Enforcement Recognition Award went to the Haldeman Norfolk Community Street Crime Unit. Media relations, they conducted their usual media relations throughout the month. The CHCH filming featured a robbery in the Haldeman County area. Fundraising, as I said, the Murder Mystery Dinner was held on May the 2nd at the Jarvis Community Center. Tickets were $90. I attended the event. It was quite entertaining. Staff Nelson was also there. I think you actually won a prize, Staff. You won a prize for guessing the right who did it. Shredding event was held here at the Staples parking lot on May the 11th from 9 till noon. It was well attended. We also, in conjunction with the shredding event, held a drug drop-off for any prescription or non-prescription drugs that people wanted to get rid of, and we collected in the neighborhood of 17 pounds of drugs for destruction. Shredding event, it will be held in Caledonia at the Caledonia Community Center on June the 8th from 9 till noon. And the golf tournament again is scheduled for August 15th at the Pine Valley Golf Course here in Norfolk. Nationally and internationally, national initiatives will be carried out in the coming months with local Crime Stoppers participating to inform the public in issues regarding human trafficking, counterfeit goods, contraband tobacco, all of which fund organized crime and terrorist organizations. And the Ontario Association of Crime Stoppers Training Conference is being hosted by Windsor and Essex County Crime Stoppers May the 30th to June 2nd. And Haldimand and Norfolk hosted the Southwest Zone meeting in April with approximately 30 members from all Southwest Crime Stoppers in attendance. The board's still seeking active new board members, and Neil Unwin continues to be chair. Page 18, locally dedicated hours of overtime for the month of April. There was 940.25 hours for municipal and 273 hours under the provincial banner. Statistics, if we flip over to the start of the graphs, on page 24, all violent crime. So based on a 5-year trend, it was estimated that we could expect between 27 and 35 events. During the reported month of April, 44 actual events were investigated. Violent crime events in Norfolk reported above the projected range for April, and violent crime is showing an upward trend and has reported above the projected range every month this year. In reviewing the violent crime events for April, they break down as follows: assaults 24, utter threats 9, sex assaults 4, forcible confinement 3, robbery 2, criminal harassment 2, and kidnapping 1. The forcible confinement and kidnapping events stand out as events that we don't typically experience. In reviewing those, the forcible confinement events are related to domestic investigations, and the kidnapping event is related to a drug investigation. Assaults, as I said, during the reported month, 24 events were investigated. Domestic disturbances, during the month, 36 events were investigated. All property crime, page 27. During the reported month, 98 events were investigated. Break and enters, during the month of April, 11 events were investigated. Frauds, we had 19 events investigated. Mischiefs, we had 19 events investigated. Theft from motor vehicle, during the reported month, only 4 events were investigated. Theft of motor vehicle, during the reported month, 12 events were investigated. Theft of vehicle events reported above our projected range for April, but in reviewing the events, they were scattered across the county, and there does not appear to be any common links connecting them at all. Theft under 5,000, during the reported month, we had 33 events. Drugs, on page 34. During the reported month, 2 events were investigated. During the month of April, the Community Street Crime Unit was involved in 20 occurrences. There were 3 warrants executed, a total of 7 persons charged with a total of 47 charges, 12 under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, 32 under the Criminal Code, and 3 charges under other legislation. Some are granted bail and some are held within custody. It depends on the JP at the time. There were 17 drug seizures valued at $4,239 and 90 property seizures valued at $10,325. There were no cash seizures and 1 vehicle seizure. 911 call, 911 hang-ups. During the reported month, 251 events were investigated. The number of events is well above what was projected. 911 calls, 911 hang-up calls have continued to be above projected estimates each month this year, and we continually message out. I think you probably all see Constable Sandchuk's releases regarding proper use of 911. A lot of the 911 hangups are cell phone tower drops where there's no valid ringback, there's no valid number, but we're still mandated to go out to where that tower is and check around to see if somebody is indeed in trouble.
More specifically, has it been, and I know it's at the discretion of the police to issue a citation or not, have any citations ever been issued for false calls, like I want new parents or some
No.
other thing? No?
No.
Okay.
Alarms, during the reported month, 49 events were investigated. Mental Health Act, during the month of April, 31 events were investigated. Members dedicated 229 hours to their investigations. And year-to-date time spent per Mental Health Act call for service is 7 hours. Traffic-related.
Can I just interrupt you there, please?
Yep.
Inspector? On the alarms, do we get a breakdown as to how many were false and how many were actuals? I mean, historically, 95% are false. It's just a statistic in the industry.
Yeah, the way that they're coded, I could probably look into that, but we don't. Most of the vast majority of them are false or.
Yeah, absolutely. And just to give you a heads up, I spoke to Bernie Corbett from Haldeman County, the chair of the PSB, when I was at Zone 4, and to Joan Garward at Brant. And I had the opportunity to meet with, not meet yet, but bump into the Police Services Board chair in Elgin and ask the same questions, looking at calls for service and where we may be able to cut back something, what are you folks doing on these issues? They haven't really given it a lot of thought at this point, but I did share with them, and this is a heads up for you folks, I did share with them the Toronto experience, where the Toronto Police Services have a policy now that they will only respond to verified alarms, and they have a whole process. And get Owen to send you the link on that, but that's something I'm going to discuss with rural communities down in Windsor when I'm there. Well, what are they doing on false alarms? Because it does take up a lot of time, and as we know, most of them are false alarms.
It does, and I know that provincially we have a mandated response to alarms. So any information that you provide to me, I can put up to command staff, because ultimately it would be their service delivery. But we do file the false alarm notices with the county each and every month, and they do send out the billing accordingly.
Just in the preliminary thinking on that particular topic was we've got a bureaucracy built up around false alarms, and I had a hand in drafting the original bylaw when it was the regional government, and I also had a hand in redrafting for Norfolk. And it just seems that there's a lot of record keeping and administration that goes behind an eventual, perhaps, fee for an alarm that keeps going off and causes a nuisance. So, but I'll get Owen to send that link to you from Toronto, and it talks about verified and those types of things. And it might be something that needs to be massaged to apply to a large force like your own across Ontario, but certainly on calls for service. How many did you have? 94 in 1 month? No?
Yeah, 49 alarms, I think. Yeah. So 911 hang-ups that were excessive. Yes, and again, if we look at the proportion of population, the proportion of businesses, I would be more alarmed if Port Rowan was higher than Simcoe. But trend-wise, that fully makes sense.
Just a heads up that thinking of cost containment, there's one possible area that we can do some research on.
Truly, if we can control the 911 hang-ups, and then in particular the tower drops, I don't know if the municipalities have any way with the cell phone companies, but that's where the vast majority of the 911 hangups are, is tower drops that come in like, we're probably out to the tower on Beach Lane, out in Houghton, 2-3 times a day.
Wow.
At least, and the one on 24. So,
The chair, let's increase the fines. Let's increase the fines for false alarms.
Well, that was something.
To make it, I don't want this to happen.
Yeah, that was something that the Police Services Board in Toronto discussed, and the police service discussed in their administration, and they in fact did that. But the bylaw or the policy simply was you get one free one, you get two free ones if you're registered. If you're not registered, you don't get any free ones, and it didn't stop it from happening. And the fee and the administration behind issuing the fee, collecting the fee, and the police time to respond wasn't covered by the fee.
okay, traffic-related statistics, page 35. So all collision types for April reported at 39 events. All collision types did see a decrease of 24, or 38.1% from April last year. A year-to-date decrease of 18.4% was observed from the same time frame last year. Property damage collisions for April reported at 31 events. The property damage collisions did see a decrease of 27 from April last year, and a year-to-date decrease of 17.9% was observed from the same time frame last year. Non-fatal injury collisions for April reported at 8 events. Did see a decrease of 3, or 60% from April last year. A year-to-date decrease of 20% was observed from the same time frame last year. Non-fatal injury collisions, again, totaled 8 for April. In reviewing the collisions, they ranked as follows. 3 were due to impaired by alcohol, 2 for failed to yield right of way, 2 for inattentive drivers, and 1 was animal collision. And fatal collisions for April reported at 0 events, which is no change from April last year, and we've seen a year-to-date decrease of 100% so far, so that is good. Impaired driving during the month of April, 12 events were investigated. Foot patrol during the month of April, 329 hours of foot patrol was conducted throughout the county. School visits during the month of April, we conducted 30 school visits. For the month of March, there were 392 criminal code and provincial statute charges laid. Again, we're always basically 2 months behind due to ICON for reporting, so it's March statistics. For the month of April, there were 3 roadside screening tests issued, 12 administrative license suspensions issued, and 3 3-day suspensions issued. There were 35 ride checks conducted and 21 seatbelt checks conducted. In regards to focus patrols, we currently have one open in regards to foot patrol here in Simcoe, which is going to run from May 17th to August 31st. And this has been generated to increase foot patrols in the town of Simcoe, particularly on Friday and Saturday nights when the volume of citizens coming into Simcoe increases.
Joe, excuse me, on directed patrols, focus patrols, anything further on the Delhi issue by the high school on the speeding? Oh, it's there? Okay, thank you.
So then we also have one, our Cottage Watch Patrol, which ran from February 12th to May 1st, closed. And as a result of the Focus Patrol, 16 officers dedicated 105.5 hours to the Focus Patrol. And during that time frame, only one entry, break and enter, took place to a camper trailer located within the Bacchus Heritage Conservation Area. So that was very good. Traffic, Focus Patrol, speeding, James Street in Delhi. We ran that from April 25th to May 17th. I don't have the results for that yet. They haven't been compiled yet, but we'll have them for the next meeting. Nelson Street, Port Dover. We ran a focus patrol there from March 29th to April 23rd. In response to a speeding complaint, 5 officers dedicated 10.5 hours and laid 1 charge. And speeding on McDowell Road, we had a focus patrol from April 24th to May 10th, although the road being closed has sort of helped that issue on McDowell. But we did have 5 officers dedicated 7.5 hours to that, and 2 charges were laid. Speed spy studies we conducted in April. We conducted 1 on Old Highway 24 in Bloomsburg. No problem was identified. We conducted 1 on Norfolk Street South in Simcoe. No problem was identified. At the request of County Engineering, we conducted 1 on Union Street in Simcoe. No problem was identified. And we conducted 1 on Barth Side Road. Again, no problem was identified. During the month of April and part of May, we did have the mobile speed watch sign on loan from Brant County, and it was deployed on James Street in Delhi, and I think it was very effective. I think Councillor Columbus, you got some calls regarding after we put it up, as did people called us. They were very happy with it. So it was deployed there until someone burnt the tires off it. We repaired it, repainted the fender, and redeployed it on the Highway 6 of Port Dover on the west side, as well as on McDowell Road in Greens Corners on May the 9th, and then subsequently Brant County asked for it back, and we returned it to them. So I don't think we'll be getting it back for the rest of the summer. They have plans to utilize it. And that is my report unless there's questions.
Stepping back to violent crime, is there any one factor the reason violent crime is up, or is it just kind of?
Well, we've looked at it, as I said. The forcible confinements and the kidnapping are events that we don't normally see. And again, they're domestic related and drug related. Assaults are up. Whether there's no commonality there, but it is warmer weather, more people are out and about. Let's face it, we do have a problem in the county with drugs, and a lot of the assaults, there's a drug or alcohol component in there, and hence why we have to engage our community partners to assist with that issue. No, I've had numerous discussions, and we actually, Staff Nilsson drew up a plan where we have one room in our office that we would like to turn into a collision reporting center. Right now we're looking for funding to do those renovations. The building is owned by the Ontario Infrastructure, so money has to come through them and through the OPP budget for those renovations. Unfortunately, we've all heard of the $46 million cutback, so we're not sure where any renovation budget sits, but we definitely, a collision reporting center is on our radar. They did open one in Essex County, OPP, and it diverted about 52% of their accidents to the collision reporting center, which again, that equates to a lot of free time freed up for officers to attend to other calls for service and or enforcement activities. Well, again, it's the closest one for OPP would be Burlington. Haldeman does have a collision reporting center. I want to say it's a quasi collision reporting center. It's sort of, they've did it on their own terms. But the OPP does have a standard set plan for collision reporting centers, which we are trying to move forward with. Again, it's a matter of securing funding for some building renovations. So if the county has any extra money that it would like to provide, I'd be more than happy to explain the plan to them and get it up and going.
This is something I discussed with Inspector Horvath when he was here, and he too was in favor of, but given the dynamics of the rural community, you know, where would you put it and that kind of thing. So
yeah, when we look at and analyze the collisions and the times and whatnot, Simcoe would be the obvious choice for it.
yeah.
But again, it could be we're looking at a model that rolls into not only collision reporting but a walk-in. So when somebody walks into the office, they want to speak to an officer regarding whatever question, it would be like a public information counter, which would free up some of the inquiries of our admin staff on their duties. And frontline support, our frontline support unit for accommodated members would work out of there as well and do the telephone calls for service. So, well, it varies from area to area. Normally, I think in the GTA, they're day and evening, but analyzing collisions here, it would probably just be during the day and maybe a few evening hours, because really somebody hits a raccoon, they can report it at any time. It doesn't have to be right then and there. But yeah, collision reporting is on the radar.
Motion from Member Greentree and Member Columbus that the OPP monthly report received as information. Any discussion? All in favor? Thank you. Okay, and that takes us then to the Project Speed Watch and the referral from Norfolk County. And you have a copy of that motion in the package. And I'll read it for the benefit of everyone, and that was passed, moved by Councillor Van Passen and seconded by Councillor Michelli, and that the Police Services Board request for funds to support Project Speed Watch be referred to the Police Services Board for further review, and that was carried. So on that topic, and in the package is the material that was provided to Council for their review and edification. In my conversations with Brant County Board Chair, she so kindly as to provided me with a committee report to their council, and I'm going to have this sent to you. And it outlines what they're doing. Now, they're half the population of us, but having said that, and fewer communities, Paris, Burford type of thing. But it gives some further insight, and I guess I'm going to ask the board, how do you want to proceed on this issue? The council has bounced it back to us. What was the request? 250,000 thereabouts?
On page 50
Yeah.
of the package. So it was a 5-year
5-year
proposal for a total of 249,000 at that time. And this was a similar financial proposal that Haldeman County OPP put to Haldeman County Council, who ultimately looked at it and made the decision to do the full expenditure and buy everything at once.
Okay.
However, that's...
And I did speak to the chair of Haldeman, Bernie Corbett, and he indicated that for his council, speeding was a big issue. It was a priority issue. Same with Brant. They saw it as a priority issue. I'm not sure how our council views it at this point. I don't know if the question's been asked. But back to the board members, how do you want to proceed on this, Michael? Yeah, turn it on the side there. Yeah.
I still see it as a priority issue. it was cut at the budget table in February, I believe. There wasn't much discussion on it. They were in the cutting mood at that time, I guess. But I think it should be at least phased in. You know, I think we borrowed one from Brent, that trailer that was borrowed. I think we need to start this somewhere. Let's see, what's the best way to go about this? There was $1 million added to the budget from 2.1 to 3.1, $1 million for other things other initiatives that come along during the year. I just wonder if it can't come out of that pot there that was added at the end of the budget discussions. So just put that on the table. I see Inspector Varga wants to comment.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, I want to reiterate again, and I agree, Councilor Columbus, that speeding definitely is an issue in this county. I think every member of council I've heard from regarding the speeding issue within their ward, and a day doesn't go by that we don't get speeding complaints. But again, when I gave on behalf of the board, I gave the deputation to council. They're still in the midst of having to do a community safety and well-being plan. Speeding very well could be one of the priorities in their initial plan, and this fits right into a solution for that issue that is community-based. Because these are, enforcement's not going to solve all the problems, and this is what fit into their community safety well-being plan. So, it sort of solves two issues at once.
Go ahead, David.
We have supported this in the past, our council, our police service board. I'm a big believer in these. I myself, and I use this as an example, I have a daughter, son-in-law, and 2 grandchildren under 7 in Belmont. And when you're coming in from Belmont from the north, you're doing 80 and it suddenly drops to 50. That sign really points that out. Now, that's just a personal example. I do believe that these signs have an effect. Of course, there's 100, you're not going to get 100%. You always got that 1 or 2, but no, when those things start flashing, you immediately look at your speedometer, and if you don't, you should be.
Carol.
Mr. Chair, I'm just wondering, I agree with Member Murphy that we did consider this before, and we find this to be very important for the safety of the people in Norfolk County. What would the best course of action be from here? We have already once sent it to council for their consideration. How do we get them to consider it again or to get them to take action?
Well, I would suspect that there are multiple choices we could make. The proposal was to spread it out over a number of years, and council, either in its wisdom, didn't see that or just saw the 250,000 and said, no, we're chopping that out. I didn't watch that. That's a marathon viewing episode at best. But Brant County did phase it in. However, the maintenance and overview and collection of statistics is a staff function, not a police function. They do it differently, and then if they discover that an area has a problem, then they report it and ask for focused patrols or whatever else might happen. I didn't get into that with Bernie on what they do in Haldeman. Maybe our inspector has a closer relationship and a view on that. But that would be a council decision on how they want to roll it out. I think fundamentally here we want to say, yes, we support it, and perhaps in what form we support it. We can have any kind of mix we want. What's most effective? Is it the speed, what do they call it, the mobile device, or speed spy, or the solar panel mounted ones? Which are most effective? And maybe say to council, this is a way to go. Just throwing those out for your consideration.
Yeah, just, so if you read the whole proposal, actually, it's pretty well outlined in there, how, how it would work. The purchase of the equipment would be by Norfolk County. They would own the equipment. Roads would be tasked to install the pole-mounted solar ones. The pole-mounted solar ones, we went with those simply because they can be mounted on poles owned by Norfolk County on Norfolk County property. There's no issue with hydro, as well as they could be put up in a community, say, I'm just going to say Bloomsburg, and then if 3 years from now we find that there is no issue there any longer, but there's a greater need on Angling Road, then because of their solar, they're pole mounted, they can be removed and relocated. Whereas if we went with a more permanent mounted structure, they're there for life. And the location of mounting them would be in conjunction, again, we have our collision reduction committee, which is county engineering, roads, risk management, and the OPP that we meet roughly every other month to discuss problem areas. So in conjunction, that committee would determine where they would be put within the county proper itself. So the county would have that. The mobile sign, again, the county would own it, but the OPP detachment, we would look after taking it out, placing it in the various places around the county. That we know that a complaint comes into us on a hot spot, or again, we get a request from the county, we can take it out and set it there. When not tying up roads time to have to haul the trailer around. The data recorders in it, if you can buy speed spies mounted within the mobile unit. Again, we currently already do the speed spy studies all around the county, for the county, at the request of the county, such as Barside Road, Union Street, but we also do other problem areas that we see.
So my understanding of Speed Spy, it's a smaller unit mounted at an intersection or someplace, and it collects data, as it was described to me.
Yeah, basically what it is, it's a radar unit that you won't see, hence the Speed Spy, and it collects the number of vehicles and the speed of those vehicles and the time of those vehicles. And we usually run a Speed Spy study, depending on the area, anywhere from 2 days to a week. We bring that data back, it goes in and analyze it, and we can tell you the average speed of the cars, how many cars there were, whether they're going east, west, north, or south, the time of day, so we can pinpoint if there's a speeding problem, but it only happens between 3 p.m. and 5 p.m., then we can focus our efforts there, rather than just willy-nilly sending an officer out to do enforcement.
Okay, and do you feel you have sufficient number of those?
We currently have 4 speed spies, and that is a
Okay,
sufficient
so hence
number.
the focus on the pole-mounted and the mobile.
Well, these, again, the pole-mounted ones don't have the speed spy technology. You can get them, but you have to remember they're permanent. You're not moving them around. It'd become redundant. It'd, quite frankly, be a waste of money to put them in there. They're there more as for the speed watch, so that when you're coming into the 50 zone on 6 Highway, you see it and, ooh, I'm speeding, I'm going to slow down. And they do have a high success rate of people dropping their speed at least between 10 and 20 kilometers. The mobile one, I would say we get with the Speed Spy technology, because we can deploy it like a Speed Spy camera. We deploy it if we deploy it to a problem area, we get the effect of people are going to slow down, but we also can get the data as to how bad the problem is there.
Okay, and so we have Speed Spy already, 4 units out there collecting data. You're analyzing, and as a result of the analysis, you're looking at targeted patrols and enforcement issues. What would be your next priority, the pole-mounted or the mobile, or do you
Well,
not?
at a bare minimum, I would like to see, I think we've proven the effectiveness of the mobile trailer boring it from Brant. I don't think anybody can question that. It works. So at the minimum, I would like to see a mobile trailer purchased. And, I mean, when I gave my deputation, there was a resident of Port Dover on 6 Highway that wrote a very effective letters to myself and the mayor, and I believe Councillor Martin, that, you know, they wanted that technology in that problem area there. So there is a need and a want for
How many of those would, I see you only asked for one in this proposal.
for the mobile signs.
Yeah.
Well, I think one mobile sign would be
Yep.
sufficient. It's the pole-mounted ones, and quite frankly, I went with 30 because that's only 15 locations, because you have to do, you know, both directions.
So, and according,
But off the top of my head, I can think of 10 locations in the county that would benefit from them.
okay, so the mobile one, as I see it, is 16,800 and change,
Correct.
okay?
That was the price back in October,
Yeah, that
so,
could change, who knows?
yeah.
And on-site 75 solar speed watch sign at $6,850 each, right? $6,850 each?
$7,000
Something like that.
roughly.
And you were looking for how many in total?
Well, 30, so
30, okay.
15 pair.
Okay. Views from committee, Mike?
See what you think. Something like, whereas excessive speed continues to be an issue on county roads, or on Norfolk County roads, whereas Norfolk County Police Services Board continues to support OPP Project Speed Watch, thereby the Norfolk County Police Services Board supports implementation of Speed Watch signs to be included in the Norfolk County Safety and Wellbeing Community Plan, right? Is what I had crafted so far, but if we want to put this trailer in there, maybe we can add that too and send it to council.
David, did I see your hand?
Yeah, the other, just a smaller question to the inspector through the chair, was you say you always have to put 2? Is that always the case? Or are there places where one side of traffic is more than other?
I would say that probably 98% of the time there would be 2 signs put up, one for east and one for west traffic, or north or south. I think there's very few locations I can think of where there would just be one way. And if I can just mention one other thing with your motion, Councillor Columbus, the Community Safety and Wellbeing Plan, to my knowledge, hasn't even been started yet.
No.
So I don't know if because the group who develops it or whoever's driving it may decide that speeding is not going to be one of the things addressed in this community safety and well-being plan. So I'm not sure whether putting that in the motion right now might be a little bit premature.
Yep.
Because I'm not even sure where the community safety and well-being plan sits.
Oh, you have another year yet.
Yeah, which will go by quick.
Yeah. So on that issue, Mike, the players are the health and social services, EMS, fire, police. You know, there's a wide range of people that will sit at that desk.
There's about 20 different groups
Yeah.
that will sit at that.
And what council has to decide is who's going to chair it, who's going to lead it.
Absolutely, hence why I put forward that we purchase 30, which would give us 15 pair. Like James Street and Delhi would benefit greatly from these signs. Norfolk Street here in Simcoe would, Angling Road in Waterford, Port Dover on both sides of Port Dover, Greens Corner, so. For the first year. For the first year, hence the 5-year plan where we purchased the mobile trailer right away, five or six pole-mounted signs, which would give us 3 locations, and then purchase for the next 4 years, purchase another 6 units. And again, as I said to council that night, these are estimates. Like, I don't know. I'm sure that there is a county purchasing, municipal purchasing somewhere. Perhaps another county's purchasing the same type of signs, and they can double up and save even more money. That's for finance to work out.
Yeah. And to the comment about ownership and maintenance, these would be purchased by Norfolk County, owned by Norfolk County, maintained by Norfolk County, and any data collected from them would be transferred to you, your detachment?
Well, we have the capabilities, we have the technology to analyze the data, and we share it freely with Norfolk County, again, through our collision reduction committee, or if Councilor Columbus, tells me about an issue, I will get back to him with the speed spy study so he can get back to the.
Okay. I just didn't want the discussion at council to get overtaken by, well, who's going to do it?
No,
You know,
well,
type of
and
stuff.
that's outlined in the report itself, that that basically the county owns them, they will install them, and we'll look after the mobile trailer and the data analysis.
So, Mike, for the purposes of the draft motion, would it be the committee's, with the committee's agreement that the whole report gets sent back to council? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And that the numbers would have to be adjusted according to whatever your purchasing arm can work out, and just boost that number of the pole mounts to 6 instead of 5. But make sure they understand it's a multi-year plan. Now, for the ensuing 4 or 5 years, Inspector, do we still want to go with 5 each year, or what's your total number that you're looking at on the pole mounted?
Well, I mean, quite frankly, this was estimated, but quite frankly, I think once we get some mounted about the county, there will be a lot of interest generated and a lot of public request. So those numbers could fluctuate. It could go up, or it could be decided that it goes down, but I don't think it'll go down.
For subsequent years, to keep it within the $50,000 range, it might be easier to swallow.
Well, and that's why it's at 46,443. It's under the 50,000.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm well aware of budget constraints. Trust
Yeah.
me.
Okay.
The other question: what does the county currently do with any revenue that's generated from provincial offense notices? Because
POA dollars go into general revolving fund, if I can use that terminology, and
okay, well, this might be a good result.
it's not used to offset the levy or anything like that. It goes into a fund for general fund, yeah.
This could be a general purchase.
Mm-hmm. But I will say, and I did pick this up in the budget process, POA collections are behind by $6 million. So if they can find a way to get those $6 million or even $4 million collected, there may be some money to use. So, Michael, are you going to draft that? And well, the next meeting of council, next Tuesday, how about massage something, give it to Owen, he can send it out, and then we can do it. I think it's permissible to do an online vote, what the heck, and then we can forward it to council at that point. All right? Rather than try to draft something hurriedly right today, right now. Yeah, David?
Carol and I can make the motion, and I can
Yep.
second it.
Yeah, let's get something drafted, let's massage it a bit, so we're fine tuning it, and then we can send it forward to, from me to the clerk for council's consideration, and Michael can pick it up from that point. All right? Is that all right, Inspector?
Yeah, again, this is not an OPP proposal.
No, no.
We wrote it, but it's
That's a PSB proposal.
PSB putting
Absolutely.
it forward to council.
Absolutely, and Owen will send out this from Brant County as well, because they had 3 or 4 initiatives, and then they funded each initiative out.
Yeah, and as well as that Brant County initiative, and I'm sure everyone saw the media release where they're actually, the county itself and other agencies are going forward with like a Project Zero towards traffic initiative. So again, that fits into their community safety and well-being plan.
Okay. Back to our agenda. Okay, the other that was included for information was the piece from North Bay on no colors and that type of thing. So I do know that the deputy mayor has a copy of that. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, just considering your background, you might be interested as well. I'm well aware the Royal Canadian Legion nationally has also prohibited the wearing of colors in their facilities. So national organization also means something, I think, to some people who are considering
Yeah, there
this.
was a bit of a pushback most recently on one of those out west where a motorcycle gang crew had a fundraiser at a Legion for food bank, or it was a social issue, but the headquarters of Legion came down and said, no, you don't do that. We have a bylaw against that. So that's there for information. The North Bay gang's policy. Just to go back, item C under number 9, that's been pulled for further council discussion. That's the prohibit permits, the council motion to prohibit the sale of paraphernalia. That's been pulled. And I can only imagine that it's going to be centered around what the Kinsman Alliance Board of Trade want to do versus control by county council. So we'll see how that unfolds. Mike? So there's no action from us on this particular point. And as I say, the North Bay no gangs policy is in the hands of the deputy mayor, and I'm sure others have seen it. So it's up to council as they want to do. And that takes us to other business, and we'll start with Member Carol Greentree. Any other business? David Murphy.
This may be in camera after, but are we going to discuss your deputations?
Yep.
Okay.
That's when I get to my other business here.
Okay.
Michael? Yep, that's we had a discussion about regional government versus, David, any comments from Zone 4?
Yeah, actually, to agree with Mike, we had no idea that the involvement, pre, pre getting to these people before they do a blockade or show them the seriousness of what they're up against. And I had no idea also that there was a group of dedicated police that are just involved in this, and apparently it has solved a lot of problems going forward once they let these people know what can happen to you, a simple charge of trespassing, and then you can't go to the U.S., for example. So I was quite impressed by that group.
Okay, go ahead, John.
Perhaps it's my fault for not communicating well enough, but the provincial liaison group that you speak of, we've actually utilized them here in Norfolk numerous times. Every Friday the 13th event, they're on ground. They actually go around to all the businesses a week or 2 weeks before the event and check in with all the businesses, let them know what's happening, and then post event, they also go around all the businesses and check in with them to find out if there are any issues or problems or what they felt were issues during the event. So we utilize them here. We also utilize them just most recently with the student protest in Toby Barrett's office, as well as with our premier's visit in Dover. So that unit has been in Norfolk County quite a bit. They don't do just Indigenous protests or demonstrations. They reach out to a lot of other events as well. So we have been benefit of their expertise, and they are well worth their weight in gold.
Anything further? Yes.
One other thing, Bill 68, they worked on that for about 5 years. As Mike said, changes the boundaries. It has a lot of implications to a lot of changes, but Dwayne Sprague, the representative from the office, said that minister's office said that he doesn't believe it might not even get signed in January. It's so far down on the list. So, but there are some good changes in that. But there are some changes that are going to change the whole police service board structures also.
Yeah, my take. No. Yeah, very much so. My take away, and it was my first meeting, Zone 4, and so I was doing more getting acquainted than I was focusing on the presentations that much. But certainly the takeaway from the ministry was that the current Police Services Act stays in effect, notwithstanding that the legislation that is to replace that has received royal assent. It has not been proclaimed, and probably would not be proclaimed until the regulations that fall out of that legislation are drafted and ready to go. His estimate was maybe, if they're given direction, January 1st, 2020, but it could go beyond that. So they did make an amendment to the Police Services Act in 2019, so they could make other minor adjustments if they wish to. But certainly we continue to operate on the 1990 original version of police, as amended, Police Services Act, until we're told differently. Moving forward, certainly I've reviewed the draft legislation, and I encourage you all to do that because it does embellish the role of the PSB to some extent. There's going to be some discussion, I'm sure, as we go forward about contract services with the OPP and the rural areas, particularly of Ontario, and what that means. And one thing I did notice that under the adequate and effective policing role, there's a list of things that are included. The one thing that was missing and specifically mentioned in the next paragraph was what comes out of that is court security. So we'll see where that goes. That could be an easy amendment for them to make. Who knows? So But I found it interesting, and it certainly, as I say, got to meet with Bernie Corbett and Joan from Brant and start some discussions with them, because I think that as we use the Ontario Provincial Police as our policing service, we should have somewhat lockstep harmony going forward in terms of direction. Anything further, Joe or Mike or David, on Zone 4? No? I will be leaving immediately after our closed session, or if there's nothing that I have to attend, maybe before the closed session ends, but get on the road and go to Windsor and attend the annual AGM, and I'll bring back as much as I can in terms of what's discussed and what I collect down there. On the 28th of May at 10 o'clock in the morning, Member Columbus and I are going to meet with the chair of the Delhi Community Policing Committee. You're invited to attend if you wish. That's at the library in Delhi. And the email communications that we've had, basically they're thinking of not scheduling any more events for 2019, and thinking about winding it down, returning any documentation that's required for records retention and any monies they may have. But we'll see what the outcome is of the discussion. And certainly, Member Columbus, a member of council, has many hundreds of friends in Ward 3. My brother as well, I've reached out to him, and and I've reached out to the Delhi BIA and Chamber of Commerce and said, you better think about this. This is your community and you want to keep it safe. So maybe there's a solution somewhere there. We're not sure until we have that discussion. But just to let you know. Yes, Michael?
Nothing that I'm aware of, other than it definitely is a benefit, because it gives the community opportunity to interface with the police on a more local, active level. But legislative-wise, I don't believe that there is. I mean, we've had community policing groups disband previously. We don't have one in the Charlottesville area. We don't have one in the Houghton Long Point area. So from time to time they do fold due to lack of volunteerism. But I think every organization is facing that crunch right now as well. And, we have changed the way that we police. I think at one point, and I think Staff Fashion probably said it the best, that at one point, the way we policed, it was really important to have a community policing group to know exactly what was going on in the community, what they were feeling. But we've changed the way that we police into more community-based policing, and perhaps they're not as much required as before. However, I would definitely not like to see them go by the wayside.
There is something in current legislation and draft legislation about community involvement, community consultations, and this just seemed like over the years to be a beneficial way to do it. But again, when we have our discussion, maybe something coming out of that more strategically might be partnerships that we can look into the community to form with existing service clubs or whatever it might be. That's true. David?
At the very beginning of this year, I'm a big believer in the community policing. On a side note, you may want to have Ed Sanchuk. He go to that meeting with you. He's a very good voice for the community policing. Also, maybe we should include the community policing a little bit more and like give the coffee day with the police and things like that. Just some of those make their presence a little more known in the community. I'm not sure what else we can do on that, but there must be functions that they can be invited to and to give a larger presence. And that's also makes them feel good that they're being invited to show what they do and talk to the public at large.
Inspector?
We do reach out to the community policing groups and let them know when we're having a tea with the OPP event and that they're most welcome to come, as well as try to involve them like in our Citizens Police Academy graduation to drum up volunteers. Fact of the matter is they're very busy people, and everybody's on different schedules and whatnot, so it is a challenge. But we try to reach out to them as much as possible. And yeah, and in fact, right now I'm working with the Port Dover committee to set up some type of town hall tea with the OPP type function that they're requesting, but we'll see where that goes.
Yeah, and as I say, the meeting with Jessica is first time, exploratory, what their issues are, and then we can bring it back and perhaps apply some strategic thinking to the whole thing. What else do I have? Oh, okay. The proposed presentation to council. I booked that for immediately following the bylaw meeting on the 4th, so that any feedback coming out of that can be slid in, is that a good word? Put into the presentation. But fundamentally, not to get anybody nervous, it's fundamentally to say to council, 7 new members around that table, around this table here, what a police service board is, what it does, the fact that it's not a committee of council, that it stands on its own, it's not their code of conduct and things don't apply to us. We have our own code of conduct that does apply to us. That's provincial legislation. So just to give them that sort of information about who we are, what we do. I also want to talk to them about what we see as current issues. And certainly before the 4th, you will see an outline of what I propose to present. Things like Friday 13th, legislative pending changes, what we just talked about, committees in the communities, those kinds of things that are, on our table and probably will end up on their table in some respects. So that's the outline of that. And with any deputation, you give information and perhaps sometimes you ask for stuff. And so I'm going to have an ask if I'm allowed to go. And the ask is going to be that they support us 100% in what we do, and that they provide us with resources when required. As we go into contract negotiations, we're going to need James Johnson and his staff there from Treasury. We're going to need some kind of legal advice going forward as well to help us in that regard. So, Council, we're going to need your support, 100% of it, as we go forward as a board. And then I'm going to ask them to schedule at some point an in-camera. And here again, the law requires that we get the priorities set. We can't delve into the operational aspects of policing. So, Council, what are your priorities? Police services, what are your priorities? And see how those things match up and now. I think we're not going to be too far off on either regard. But the law says that the priorities must be given to our police services. So if council sees one of their top priorities as speeding, well, then that's going to be sent forward through the Police Services Board to them. So that's fundamentally where I had intended to make a presentation to council. Comment? David?
Just in the form, not an emotion at this point, but Dennis, you're new, you're really diving into this, and I give you a lot of credit for that, and you have the knowledge and experience of doing that. But I'm a big believer that any and all deputations given by any member of the board, of the Norfolk Police Service Board, have to be submitted at least an overview in writing and approved by us, to know exactly what you're talking about. Also, when we talk going into in-camera, I'm a big believer that one of us, and excluding our 2 council members, go with you on the in-camera meeting, either Carol or myself. Be also present. And
absolutely.
That's all. You're aggressive, it's duly noted, and it's and I just and I know you're very aware of the rules and regulations, but I just wanted to point them out, that's all.
No, and I appreciate that, and that's in the legislation as well, that the board give approval for people to speak on their behalf. I said to you about a minute and a half ago, you will see a copy well before the 4th of what I intend to present. And the intent of the in-camera is to let council freely and speak to what their priorities are in policing so that we can pass them along. And certainly, every member of this board will be invited to attend both the open and closed sessions. Yeah?
My comments. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. So I don't need an motion right now. I'm going to, when you get the draft and look at it, and then we can do it at that time. And the last thing I want to mention is I also got this, and I'll pass this along to you, and it was from Brant County. She only had one with her when she gave it to me, and it's when to call 911. It's sponsored by the Lions Club and a few others, so it didn't cost Brant County anything to produce it. I'm not a big fan of magnetic stuff because a lot of refrigerators are aluminum nowadays, and you put that in a pocket by your credit cards, and your credit cards aren't going to work. But we'll pass that along just for you to look at and consider, and maybe Owen can take a photocopy of it and put it in the draft minutes when they come around for people to have a look at. And you can add anything else on there that you want, but it's maybe getting to the issue of when to call 911, get that information out. And the conduit for doing that can be any forum. It can go out through the community policing. It can go out, whatever. I did find out from Brant, however, that their staff pushed back on putting it into the tax bills because the inserting machine wouldn't take them. So they wouldn't do it in that fashion. But just for your own consideration, you'll see a copy of it when it comes around, and maybe we can kick that around at some point. But it's a first step forward to telling people when to call 911. It's not going to stop the pocket dials. We know that. But, and that's all I have. Yes, sir.
Just one comment on that. If it proves to be effective, we do have some funds that we can, because 911 is one of our largest problems so far as not only tying up at the cost. And if it does prove to be effective, a flyer to our community, we do have some funds available if it would definitely make a difference in 911.
I would enjoy all those comments. Once you get a look at it and put your brain to work as how it could help and get our message out to the general public. Yes, sir.
Our message does get out frequently with Ed Sanchuk, as you mentioned before.
Yep.
He is out there quite frequently and very vocal about the use of 911. A lot of it makes national news because of some of the antics of some of our citizens. And so I think it's well known that this is an issue, and just for what it's worth, we are promoting that.
And this kind of handout, for the lack of a better word, there are so many events that the OPP and the EMS host. They're collecting food for the food bank, and they're out with a little hot dog thing, and the lock it and pocket, and any other community involvements that they have, and they can be readily handed out to the community at that point. Go ahead, Inspector.
No, I was just staff fashion brought up the point that we did do something out in the tax bills several years ago, I believe.
Mr. Chair, I believe it was the spring of 2016. We had actually a color flyer go out with the tax bill to all the residents in Norfolk.
And what does go in the tax bill, with the tax bill, of course, is the mayor's message. And when I was there, I used to have the pie chart of where all your dollar goes here type of thing for people to be informed. But that's another vehicle we could explore relative to putting it on that document as well as an insert rather than that. Anything further? Okay, having said all of that, and Owen will take that back and make a copy of it at some point. Moved by Member Greentree, second by Member Murphy. Police Services Board move into closed session at 10:29 a.m. to discuss matters. Sorry? You're on daylight saving time? No, I am. Thank you. 11:29 to discuss matters pursuant to Section 35A of the Police Services Act, RSO 1990 CP 15, as amended, subject matter involving public security may be disclosed, and having regard to the circumstances, the desirability of avoiding their disclosure to the public interest outweighs the desirability of adhering to the principle that proceedings be open to the public. All in favor? Thank you.